so Illinois homeschool laws. And being an attorney, here is my disclaimer, right? Because you always have to have disclaimers everywhere. This is not legal advice. Let me make that super clear right now. This is not legal advice to you, okay? All right, this is me just sharing meanings that as I understand it, and also giving you places where you can yourself go to read the laws and or the case law as it may be in Illinois. Okay, so the key sections of the Illinois Annotated Statutes are these two sections. And I break it down for you and what they basically say here, okay? And what Illinois says is you must teach those branches of education taught to the children of corresponding age and grade in the public schools. Now here's the thing. And number two, in the English language. Okay, and then I break it down here. What are those branches of education? Language arts, math, biological and physical sciences, social sciences, which for those of us who are of a certain age, it's social studies, right? But it also includes things like business and psychology and sociology and all of those ologies, okay? Except for biology. But all those social sciences, history, okay? Fine arts and physical development and health. So those are your branches of education. Now this language, it's very important to understand, actually is for all non-public schools in Illinois. You are considered a private school or non-public school in Illinois. And that statute that it's referencing, you will not find the word homeschool. And we want to keep it that way. Please, please, please hear me on this. We want to keep each one of us as being a private school or a non-public school in Illinois. We don't want language that talks about homeschool. There should be no distinction, no delineation between your homeschool, your private school, and the Catholic school across the street, or the Presbyterian school down the road, or the Waldorf school, or whichever private school you choose. They are all private schools, okay? So that was determined in this case, which is called People v. Levison, okay? It happened in 1950, and it also had a different challenge later on, not as important, but it maintained this status that we are private schools in Illinois. Now, because of that, we have to do, right, what any non-public schools would do. And non-public schools in Illinois are not required to register with any public school official, with the state, with the ISBE, with anyone. There is no registration requirement. Please hear me on this. You're not required to seek what you might be seeing out there. There's all this misinformation floating out there, you guys. And you might be seeing, well, what does recognize mean? And wait, what about accreditation and approval? Let me clue you in on something. Most of the non-public schools, there's no accreditation. And I'll tell you something just from my own research outside of this, accreditation is kind of a joke. You just kind of pay money and get it. I mean, there's no requirements of any of that. Okay, so you do not have to fill out any forms to register your homeschool. You do not have to seek approval or accreditation, anything of that sort, or recognition by the ISBE, the Illinois State Board of Education. Not a requirement. Okay, I just want to make that really clear because so many things are happening out there that I'm seeing that people are required to register, people are required to, fill out this form, and then sometimes there's even direct threats, which I'll talk about here in a minute, okay? If you have not registered, so here's now the next step. If you are withdrawing your student from public school in Illinois, right? That is what we're going to talk about now. So if you have not registered at any school yet, if you are watching this and or you're hearing this and your child has never been registered in public school in Illinois, don't do it. Just don't do it. If you're choosing to homeschool, of course. Just don't, okay? You don't have to notify anyone. You don't have to send in a thing. You don't have to do one thing. You are good to go. Because guess what? Parents know what's best for their child, okay? Now, guys, I know you hear the stories, and we all hear the stories about students who have been homeschooled or being homeschooled, and there is a really awful situation in the home. That happens a lot in public schools just by pure numbers. It is not the commonality. It is not why parents homeschool. Does it happen? You bet. And in those circumstances, you very much hope that you want the system to work. But that is not a reason to have anyone be able, right, to just come check on you at any time. If they're going to do that with the Catholic school down the street, and they're going to make that true for all non-public schools, well, that is a thing you have to decide for yourself if you agree with or not. But, you know, I want to make it really, really, really clear that you do not have to register with anyone. If your child has never been in public school, has never been registered, you need to do nothing. Nothing. It's awesome. Now, if your child at any point in time has been registered in the public school system for this coming year, okay, so if they've attended ever your local public school, or if you've registered them for this coming year already, it is recommended, but again, not required, but it is recommended, and I would recommend as a homeschool mom, that you send a letter to that school letting them know simply, I am withdrawing your child's name to put them in private school. That's it. That's it. It is not their business. Now, this is totally up to you, by the way, but it is not their business, and they have no legal claim to ask you anything more. What school they're going to, where are they going to be? That is for your knowledge only, or to share as you'd like, okay? Because there are definitely schools, principals, districts that are doing everything they can to be supportive of parents who are choosing to homeschool their children in this time, but there is the exact opposite going on in our state as well. And I would imagine that's true for a lot of different states, okay? So some are saying things like, we've heard directly from people that principals are even calling and saying, if you choose to homeschool, just know I'm going to send a truancy officer throughout the year to check on you. First of all, not their purview, because did you hear, it has nothing to do with cause. Remember that circumstance I was talking about where maybe there's some type of abusive situation in the home or something like that? Oh, if that's reported and substantiated, then there's cause. And that's if you're in the public school, a private school, either one, right? But simply just saying because you're homeschooling, because you're a private school, there is no truancy issue. That your child's not truant, your child's in school. And they have no authority, zero authority to do that. Zero, okay? So I want to make that really, really clear about that. Okay, so yes, Anita, that's a great question. So your daughter then was in the public school previously, based on what you told me about her age. So then I would still send that letter. Do not register her again, but just to be on the safe side, because times are crazy right now. And also, you guys, honestly, just to be fair to the schools so they know, right? So for instance, Anita, if your daughter was already at the school at some point, like last year, okay, I would still, if I were you, just to cross my T's and make sure everybody's aware and just being kind to them so they know for sure, send that letter. I would notify them. Yeah, I would notify them in writing. And here's the next slide about that. Okay, so I'm trying to be really clear for you guys here and really lay it out. And I hope you're seeing why sometimes Facebook posts, really be careful, you guys. And some are right on the money, but there's just not enough information. So here's what I would recommend strongly, right, for withdrawing from public school. And then we'll talk about from private school as well, okay? But public school, really. Private school, you don't have to do anything, but I'll get to that. All communications should be in writing with 2 copies. Guys, it's just a crazy time right now, and this is just good practice. This is not in any way to worry you or panic you at all, okay? But it's good practice, just so that you know, they know, and making sure that you're covering your bases, right? So I strongly recommend it be in writing with 2 copies, one for you, one for your school. Now, you can mail it with return receipt requested. You don't ever want to, we never got that. Sorry, never got it. So then they're, marking your child as absent every day, right? You don't want that. Or it can be faxed with a receipt, making sure you have that receipt that shows that they received it, right? Or hand delivered, totally fine, hand delivered to the secretary or the principal, and have them sign and date your copy as well as theirs, or stamp it, okay? That's just my recommendation, just to make sure. Do not email. Do not email. I really, really can't stress that enough. How many times have emails disappeared on you guys? Like, legitimately? Okay, it still blows my mind. I'm like, nope, never got it, okay? It just happens, right? This is nothing sinister about this at all. You just don't want it to get lost, okay? So do not email. Okay, here are links, and Jack is gonna put those in the chat for you. Just watch for it in a few minutes. So here are the links for great samples, okay? And I'm actually gonna touch on one issue that are in these sample letters. Also, this resource as a statewide organization, I have later for you, okay? So there's a sample withdrawal letter and a sample request for records. So let's talk about that for a second, because I do get a lot of questions about records as well, and I've seen a lot out there. So records, do you have to have those? Now, moms, if you're planning on putting your child back in school, or if you don't know, if you are like, well, you know what, I do want to try homeschooling, and maybe we'll keep homeschooling. I'm just not sure yet, and maybe it won't work out and I'll put him back in. Whatever your plans, totally fine. I would still consider getting their records. It is always good practice. I recommend that, for doctor's offices, for any of those. I didn't do it often enough, to be honest with you. But requesting your records is absolutely within your purview at any time, okay, that they have to provide you with those records. Here's the catch, though, and here's an important thing that you should be aware of. And what I'm not seeing out there is you want to do, when you send your withdrawal letter, I highly recommend that you include the records letter at the same time, because I believe you have a 14-day, so 2-week window on which to request those records and have them given to you. Because at that point, I believe, again, not legal advice, you can check with this, but honestly, it's just good practice. Do that 2-week window. They may purge or archive or whatever the records. So again, I think even if you're planning on putting your child back in next year, you might want to get the records. I did when I pulled my children out of their elementary school, out of Marion Jordan, and it was great, actually. I was really interesting to me, and I was looking at my son's first standardized test scores, and really getting a better understanding. So anyway, that is there for you, and also a suggested letter. Okay.